here. I have got an excellent retirement update for you guys today. Kind of give you something to think about. We're not going to go too long on this video. By the way, when you are watching this, if you will type in the comments section and tell me where you're seeing this video from, what city, what state, that would be awesome. Just so we can get an idea of who's actually seeing these. So what we're going to talk about are some of the biggest risks to retirement. And here's 4 of the biggest risks, and it's this 4th one that nobody ever really talks about. So here's what they are. Number 1 is market risk. And that is the idea that the market dies substantially sometime during your retirement. And one of the biggies here is that the rules change, as you're going to see in a minute here, when you're accumulating money versus when you're decumulating money, when you're spending money. And so all of a sudden, kind of the dynamics change, and I'm going to illustrate that for you in a moment. So market risk is a big one. Longevity, outliving your money, is a real concern. In our next video, we're going to talk about some of the base ways of retirement and some of the things, some of the formulas that people use and whether you should use this one or that one, kind of the fidelity model, the 4% rule, and we're going to talk about the flooring methodology, the pension method, all those different things. But one of the biggest problems is if you live too long, this can be a big deal. In fact, it's kind of what got Social Security in trouble in the first place. When they first instituted it, people were only living to their late 50s, early 60s to get a benefit that didn't start until they were in their mid-60s. And so that ran for a long time, but as people started living longer, I don't know if you guys saw that guy. He was a World War II hero, and he died a couple months ago. He would picture on the internet, he'd always be holding a gun, smoking a cigar, a bottle of whiskey right next to him. He lived until his early hundreds, I think. So longevity is a big deal, and then taxes in retirement are a huge deal because by deferring your income via 401ks and IRAs, you may actually end up paying substantially more taxes than you would if you just got it over with. But what's this 4th risk that I'm chatting about? Here's what it is. It is the sequence in which you earn your returns. This is a biggie, and almost nobody talks about it. So let me show you what I mean here. If we go into and take an example, I'm going to get a light bulb in here. We're still trying to figure out what to do with this new office. Notice, for the haters, well, not the haters, the commentators, I have stuff on my wall here, but over there's kind of a hot mess while we figure out what to do with this desk. My room has 5 walls, so it's kind of got a weird layout. All right, so we're going to take a family. They have $1 million. They have $1 million, and they want to start taking $50,000 a year in retirement, and they're going to inflate that number, meaning they're going to make it go up by 3.5% a year to keep track with inflation. And here's what we're going to assume that they earn. They're going to earn 27% gain, a good market year, a 9% gain, an okay market year, a 7% gain, and then a 15% loss. Nothing too crazy, not even really a bear market. I believe it's 20% officially constitutes a bull market, a bear market. We're just going to say that they did a 15% loss once every 4 years. And they're going to earn the money in that order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So they have an average of 7%. That's just these 4 numbers added together, divided by 4. So let's take a look at how long the money lasts. The money kind of goes up. For the 3 years, it goes down. And this is while they're taking this $50,000 a year. Kind of does this a few more times. And then check it out. It lasts all the way until 102 years. So if one of them, and by the way, you may look at that and be like, nobody's going to live that long. The fastest growing segment of the population is the 100 plus. Now, you may say, and rightly so, well, there's not that many of them, so a percentage increase just means a few more of them are living that long. And that is absolutely 100% correct. But 30, 40 years ago, the average life expectancy was in here, and over the last 40 years, it's moved up into here, and then it just came back down a little bit the last year because of two big factors. Drug overdoses and suicides kind of brought that number back down. And it's why you hear a lot about the fentanyl crisis and some of the other crises. But people are living, the odds are 50% if you're a married couple and you both make it to 65, 50% that one of you makes it to age 90, which would be right in here, that's 95. And the odds are 5% that one of you makes it to 100. So this isn't totally crazy. So here's what happens. $50,000 a year, earning the money in this order, 27%, 9%, 7%, best to worst, only one negative year, nothing crazy, nothing like we saw in 2008, nothing like we saw in the early 2000s, just a 15% knock for the year. The money lasts 37 years. Now, here's an interesting question. What happens when that order gets reversed? So we're going to end up with the exact same average rate of return, 7%. But instead of going best to worst, we're going to go worst to best. Same average rate of return, will it make a difference? And the answer is, if we were accumulating money and not taking this out, the answer is no. You would end up, as long as you had the same number of good years, same number of bad years, and they averaged out, you'd be fine in the end. Be the exact same number. Prove that in another video. But watch what happens when you begin to spend this money and all the rules change. Check it out. So remember, the money lasted to 102, and notice it came up and then began to go back down. Here is the exact same family if the order was reversed. 50,000 a year, negative 15, 7, 9, 27, same 7%. Notice we take a big hit in here, then come back up. We ran out of money at age 89. Can you believe that? 13 years earlier than the exact same return in a different sequence. See the difference? Nothing changed except the order in which we earned this money while we were retired. That's what sequence of return risk means. So it's a huge thing that nobody talks about. And the best analogy, I'll give you guys two of them right now. The best analogy about why you need to pay attention to this is because, for starters, you have an entire generation of financial planners that is attempting to do something that's never been done before. You see, when you go back to the 70s, up until the 1970s, the majority of Americans had pensions. They had Social Security, and they had pensions from their jobs. Since the 70s, where we went from defined benefit pension plans, you do X work, you get Y in return, the government shifted people's focus to tax-deferred defined contribution plans, where you would put in and maybe you'd get a match like you do in a 401k. An IRA, you don't get a match, but you can still defer that money. And we're not talking about taxes. That's a different conversation for a different way. But what the average investment advisor is attempting to do is take a lump sum of money and make it last for 20, 30, 40, 50 years if someone retires early. I was talking to a client the other day right here in the office that wants to retire at 50, but we got a plan on him living for 100. So we've got 30 working years that need to support 50 retirement years, and we've got to factor in inflation. By the way, that's another risk in there I forgot to include. So technically there's 5. But so people have never done this before. In a couple, 3 bad years, if we threw that in here, what if we threw one negative 50% year anywhere in here? Anywhere in there. Now what? Let's say it came when you were 76. What's one 50% or one 30% negative year, just one, going to do to your entire retirement outlook? So, like I said, you have a whole generation of financial advisors that's never had to deal with this. Never really thought about it. They say things like, oh, the market's always going to come back, and I'm not advocating that any of my clients get out of the market. What we are talking about is balancing risk and really understanding the difference between dispersing money and living off of it and accumulating money. And here's the analogy I'll give you. Maybe 9 months ago, I took an introductory flight lesson right up the street here from where my office is, Palomar Airport in Carlsbad. And it's great. You fly out kind of over the ocean, which is just like 2 blocks right over there. And the instructor was a kid. I think he could legally drink. I'm not really sure. He didn't kind of look like it, but maybe. And he's a flight instructor, so I don't know. His dad was a United pilot or something like that. Good kid. And anyway, so I asked him all these questions about dying because I don't want to die. And I was like, what happened in this air wreck? What happened here? Why did this happen? He's looking at me kind of funny. And I'm like, look, man, I don't want to die. I want to live a long time. So I just want to understand, I've been told that you're safer flying in an airplane than you are driving to the airport. I don't want to be the guy that ends up in the ocean. So tell me about all this. So he's walking me through it. I'm like, all right, I feel comfortable. Let's go for a ride. So we get to the end of the runway. I'm going somewhere with this. We get to the end of the runway, point the airplane towards the ocean. He's like, okay, you hold the controls. I'll work the gas and the pedals. And when we get to about 55 miles an hour, you pull back, keep it straight. We'll be airborne. When you get out over the ocean, a few hundred yards, make a left. I'll take care of the rest. Guy let me fly the plane to take off. That's like accumulating money. I would have to really work to try and do some damage there. And so I flew the entire plane all around. We went down the ocean, basically down to Lake Del Mar, then turned around and came back. We kind of went inland. When it came time to land, totally different story. The same nice 21-year-old kid is like, put your hands in your pockets, don't touch anything. I'm taking command of this airplane. I'm like, what? You're not going to let me land it? It's like, no, sir, that's not happening. See, landing an airplane and technically walking away from the landing, which is the important part, ideally with the plane intact, that's a completely different skill set than it is to just get an airplane airborne and fly it around. So it's the same analogy to accumulating money, what these guys did, to get to this point where now we're going to retire and start living off the money is a completely different skill set than decumulating, spending the money, living off of it, having it adjust for inflation, minimizing taxes, and making sure you don't crash here short of the runway when somebody in your family lives out to here. That's a big deal. Another analogy that I'll leave you with, and it's not gruesome, but it's just something to think about. About 4,000 people have summited Everest. It's a big deal. You train for months for this. And about 250, 275 have perished in the attempt. But here's kind of the interesting thing to think about. It's not the ascent, by and large, absent an avalanche or something, an earthquake or something dramatic that's happened. It's not the ascent where they perish, it's the descent. And if you've ever seen any of the documentaries, Everest gets crowded. There's only so many people that can go at a time, and people run out of oxygen, run out of resources. They're too long in exposure. And so what we tell our clients today is when it comes to retirement, we're going to work to not only get you to the top when your money peaks safely, minimizing those risks that we talked about a minute ago, but at the same time, we got to make sure this doesn't happen to you. We want, it's down here on the floor. We want the money to last, to minimize this sequence risk, and that'll take you a long way towards meeting your retirement goals with less stress, less worry, and making sure. Now, the question is, how do you do that? We're not there yet. In the next video that I put together, we're going to chat about what the methods of distributing. This was kind of a version of the 4% rule, except they started out with 5%. We're going to talk about that, where that rule came from, and we're going to talk about some other methods, and then we'll begin to talk about 21st century solutions for this problem. Real solutions that work today that aren't last century solutions or theory that sounded good, that worked in somebody's computer or basement when they tested it, but doesn't actually work today in the real world. So we're going to go through that in our next video. Look for that tomorrow or Thursday. By the way, this same problem is kind of one of your College 529 problems. If there is a market crash, and let's say this is 100,000, not a million, and you're trying to spend it out over a much shorter period of time, these problems are magnified because you've only got a short period of time that your kid's in school. So what are the risks again? Remember, market risk is one. Taxes are another, that they get raised or you just end up paying much more on them. Inflation's a big one, longevity, and now we're going to add the sequence, the order in which you earn that money is something that you absolutely have to pay attention to. By the way, when you guys get a moment, in the chat box, pop in how many years until you're planning on retiring, and we'll just get a survey going to kind of give you guys an idea of some strategies, and it'll help me make other videos. So, hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. We'll have another one for you in the next day or so, and in the meantime, hit like, feel free to share. We'd love to get the message out. This is what people aren't talking about. All right? Take care, y'all. We'll chat soon, and since I don't have a cameraman, I gotta walk around now and turn this out. All right, take care.